And that is, of course, Klaus Lunhta. He is a graduate of the U.S. Merchant Marine Academy and serves with the International Maritime Organization in London. And when you were on the broadcast earlier, you were saying there's going to be a lengthy period of time. And as we look at what's happened so far, I mean, you have to be very impressed with how quickly this is going.
I'm impressed. It's a remarkable achievement. They came on the scene and within 72 hours are able to right this vessel. It's almost righted. They're moving methodically and taking care of the ship, but it is just incredible.
And let's kind of walk our viewers through this process, because it's pretty remarkable when you think about how far we've come when it comes to righting ships, because they're talking about hours here. And you and I were talking earlier, you said it could be weeks. I was looking back, the USS Oklahoma back in 1943, they started on their process in March. It took all the way to June before they were able to right it. Of course, the Costa Concordia took quite a while. Yeah. They're talking about hours here. Do you think that's optimistic, or do you think it's a possibility, looking at what we've seen so far?
Looking at the pictures we see now, it's absolutely a possibility. And, you know, I couldn't help but think that the seawall disaster, if anything at all good came of that, is that there were probably some lessons learned from the Koreans on how to right a ship and deal with this sort of incident, and now you're seeing that practice put to work.
And what were the lessons learned?
Well, dealing with a maritime catastrophe. Nobody wants to face it, but you're looking at large losses of life, so you first have to mitigate that, which they did through their immediate search, and then salvaging the vessel in a body of water where the current is extremely swift, so they knew they needed to move quickly, and they're doing just that.
So talk to us, walk us through what we're seeing right now, because as Jim was saying, the cables are attached. These cranes have to work in harmony, don't they, and make sure that it comes up. And then there's a speed issue as well. You can't go too fast, but you do kind of pick up speed as you go along, don't you?
Yeah, you have to move very slowly. The cables work in tandem. The cranes move very methodically. You have to remember, too, inside the ship, there are various compartments throughout the entire vessel, and all of those compartments have water that shift around, which probably contributed to the initial capsizing. So you just have to move slowly, allow that water to drain out to the various compartments so that the ship is, in a way, balanced as you upright it.
And Tim Taylor's joining us from New York as well. He's president of Tiburon Subsea Services. That's a corporation dedicated to ocean research and exploration. Tim, I want to get your thoughts on this. What are you seeing that strikes you as far as this rescue operation underway, or recovery operation, I should say?
Well, the same as all your guests, the speed of them getting on site and doing this. Inevitably, this would have had to been done. So they were probably had two teams, the initial search team and then the salvage team, already making these plans well in advance and getting things in position. So immediately they knew they had to right this ship. So those plans probably paralleled the rescue plans.
Well, what are some of the struggles that they'll face as they continue this process, would you say? Things to watch out for.
The elements, obviously, the families is what I feel for. There's a big social element to this about taking care of the remains of the family and dealing with this with the dignity that they have to. And it's not a fast process. It's slow. Even when it's righted, depending on how they pump it out, they're going to have to seal up different compartments and different windows and different parts of this thing with divers so they can actually pump it out. Unless, of course, these cranes can lift that ship, that mass, and bring it up while they pump it out. That may expedite things.
Yeah, I saw you shaking your head. You don't think that's likely?
I'm not a salver, but there's going to be a lot of water in that vessel.
Yeah, I agree. It'll
be tough.
Yeah.
And so,
well, they can also displace it with lift bags and things of that nature. But again, with bodies in there, the work that you'd normally do on a daily basis on a typical salvage of a ship that didn't have any remains on it is a whole lot different than working around the bodies.
Tim and Klaus, I want to ask you about, I remember during Costa Concordia, one of the concerns was that there might be a fuel leak, that sort of thing. Is that a concern at all as you're working on something like this? I'll start with you, Klaus.
Well, you can see in the pictures that we saw there, you can see some oil leakage already going into the water, so absolutely it's a concern. I don't know if it's top of mind right now. I think first we want to see if there's any survivors, which is very unlikely at this point, and then get the vessel righted. They can take care of the pollution later.
And Tim, what's your take on that?
Well, it's going to be more of an issue for the divers, and it's a hazardous material. And working, if they're recovering bodies with divers, they have to deal with that environmentally. As far as the spill, it's not like it's an oil rig or something. Fuel is very light; it evaporates. A lot of it will be gone. These types of ships don't carry a lot of big, heavy oil. It is an environmental issue, but nothing that is going to have real long-term effects.
Tim, talk to me about the pace of this, because we've mentioned it's slow, it's methodical, they have to do it the right way, but I guess as it gets further up, some of that water gets out. Does that contribute to maybe a more speedy process? Does it? Walk us through this whole process? How long does it take? Is it incremental initially, and then you pick up speed, or is that a concern with the water shifting about?
I'm not on site, but this is kind of a crime scene or a scene that needs to be investigated, or worse, recovering of bodies. So that is going to slow it down. You have to, the respect you got to pay to the families and the recovery of the bodies is what's going to be the big slowdown. Typically, they can get this floated, they can tow it into a dock, they can stabilize it, and then they can get workers on there in a much friendlier environment than offshore. And expedite this, so it can go pretty fast once you get it up and floated.
Okay, one final question for both of you. Tim, I'll let you go first. Your thoughts on how long this process is going to take?
Oh, weeks, if not, longer than that. This is it's going to take some time. Once it's initially up, there's a lot of work to be done.
Klaus, you feel the same way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a methodical process. It'll take time, and our hearts go out to the families of the people who've been lost.
Yeah, Klaus, thanks so much for joining us here on the set. Tim, our thanks to you as well, joining us from New York. Certainly